Police reform, and some are meeting with family members who lost loved ones in use of force incidents. Fox's Jared Halpern is live on Capitol Hill.
The brother of George Floyd joined other police reform advocates and attorney Benjamin Crump in meetings with key lawmakers negotiating police reform legislation.
They got to hear directly from the families whose blood will be on the legislation that is being proposed.
Crump says South Carolina Republicans Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham listened intently. Scott is leading Senate Republicans in talks with Democrats on a bill expected to address use of force and transparency in law enforcement. President Biden wants reform enacted by the one-year anniversary of Floyd's death next month. Lisa.
Thanks, Jared. The president, meantime, is visiting Georgia, taking his jobs and family's plans on the road, also meeting with former President Jimmy Carter. The driver in a fiery van crash that killed 6 people last weekend near Atlanta is now charged with multiple counts.
Gwinnett County Police have booked Monica Manayer on suspicion of 6 counts of homicide by vehicle as well as reckless driving. Investigators accuse her of making an unsafe lane change while driving passengers in a van, most of whom were part of a sober living group. They were on their way to a recovery meeting. The van flipped over on I-85 and burst into flames. Passing motorists stopped to try to help pull people from the wreckage. 6 women were killed, and the 10 others inside were injured. The police report indicates, though, that witnesses told them a second vehicle unexpectedly changed lanes in front of the van before it crashed.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Indictments just announced against 8 people in the alcohol-related death of an Ohio college student found unconscious after a frat party in March. The charges range from hazing and assault to involuntary manslaughter. America is listening to Fox News.
Don't let the challenge of creating mobile apps stall your business. Building apps takes time, special skills, and a lot of money. Fortunately, with Sodi Snap, you can unleash your inner developer by allowing you to build and deploy apps fast. You don't need to be a software developer, and you don't need a lot of money. With Sodi Snap, you can create apps up to 10 times faster than traditional methods. Leverage Sodi's free app prototyping service. Visit sodi.net/Fox for a free trial for Fox News radio listeners. That's SOTI.net/Fox.
More than $100 million in medical supplies from the U.S. are on the way to India.
U.S. Air Force launched 2 cargo planes full of badly needed medical supplies from California bound for India. A coronavirus outbreak has led to thousands of deaths in recent days. In a tweet, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said oxygen cylinders as well as N95 masks were part of the aid package. USAID delivered the supplies to Travis Air Force Base located outside San Francisco. The White House said India helped the U.S. when its hospitals were strained early in the pandemic. Now it's time for the U.S. to help India. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
India is having a record surge in COVID cases, topping 300,000 new cases per day. The French president laying out a new 4-step plan to reopen his country, including the return of outdoor terraces for cafes and restaurants in May, along with museums and theaters under certain conditions, though France's case numbers and hospitalizations remain high. A new poll finds many Americans support athletes and teams speaking out on issues.
Remember when there was a strong separation between sports and politics? Not anymore. A poll conducted for Seton Hall University by YouGov found that the majority of Americans support sports teams, leagues, and players using their influence to affect social change. Among poll questions, should teams and leagues use their influence? 48% said yes, 36% no, the rest undecided.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Here is the Onion Week in Review Transportation Edition. In Albany, a Greyhound bus crash claimed 30 miserable lives Tuesday, finally putting over 24 deadbeat fathers, penniless drug addicts, and hapless bastards out of their misery. Emergency crews at the scene of the merciful accident described the sea of fast food bags, candy bar wrappers, and losing lottery tickets surrounding the crash site as utterly tragic, adding that the scorched corpses inside the bus were, quote, only slightly more lifeless than before the deadly accident.
Evidence suggests that most of the victims suffered during the crash, and for many years before they even boarded the bus. All I can say is, thank God no one made it.
Al-Qaeda is refusing to carry out any further terrorist attacks until the U.S. mass transportation infrastructure is drastically improved, calling the country's roads and bridges a, quote, travesty, unbecoming of a developed first world nation.
We want to turn your bridges into rubble. But if we took credit for making them collapse, no one would ever believe us.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Yes, it is Free Talk Live, the Sunday night edition. We are the live call-in radio talk program where you can call and talk about anything that's on your mind. There's not a lot of programs that will allow you to do that. In fact, we may be the only one on, terrestrial radio as far as syndicated radio is concerned. We're on something like 200 stations. We're also on the internet. We're streaming on 5 or 6 different video platforms and also audio, and we're on a couple of satellite channels as well. So if you want your voice to be heard, you may dial 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, I am your host, the Reverend Captain Kickass. Joining me,
Beakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And we have a whole bunch of stuff that we brought in that we want to talk about. So we'll start with that. First of all, we've got from MSN.com. Secret court reveals the FBI hunted for domestic terrorists without a warrant. Something that should be a no-no in the law enforcement world, but clearly is not. The FBI, without any court order, sifted through the National Security Agency's massive troves of foreign communications for information on American, quote, racially motivated violent extremists, unquote. A newly declassified order from the Secret Service surveillance court details.
So one thing I'd like to point out is this seems to me a weaponization of, so everything you do is racist. I mean, especially if you're white. White silence is violence, so that's racist.
White silence is violence?
Yeah, you haven't heard that?
They've been saying that phrase for like at least a year.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're supposed to speak up on behalf of minorities for them. That was the phrase.
I've seen
but also
plenty
we're not
of...
supposed to talk over them, so I don't know what we're supposed to. There's no win condition, so screw it.
Right.
There's no win condition.
I mean, I've seen plenty of white people stand up for minorities of all varieties as, we watch the news turn, as it were, because, we kind of have to for, us to pick and choose some of these headlines that we bring in and topics that we cover. I've seen plenty of white people, stepping up and advocating for, hey, let's end racism, or, let's be tolerant and like all inclusive and like we're all one race, we're the human race, all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, these days, being colorblind is a form of racism somehow. Yeah. The glitching you're experiencing in your brain right now is correct.
I feel like the Swedish chef.
I'm far from the first person to point out that everything gets labeled with the R word, especially if they don't agree with it. So the fact that they're targeting based on this racially motivated, which means anyone who's been labeled with the R word, good luck. The FBI's on.
What's funny is that a lot of people believe that people who are into watching NASCAR are racist. And they are in the fact that they enjoy watching racing.
Wow.
I mean, like
Well,
in a non-racist world, the word racist would mean somebody who watches a lot of races.
Well, I will. I'm gonna sit here and expect that expands to golf, and then to possibly football.
I mean, golf, save for some popular minority golfers, is, I mean, in my opinion, an incredibly elitist sport that definitely like at least used to be racist. I don't know the state of it now. I didn't really pay that much attention to it because, well, I find golf to be elitist, and so I don't participate.
And you can tell that they're all like high-end elitists because at the golf course, they just wander into the street without really looking where. There's one in between here and my house, and they just
I used to
wander into the street like they own it or they can't die. Or
I used to live near a golf course, and it wasn't a particularly hoity golf. It was like the community college of golf courses. I think it wasn't even 18 holes. It was like 8 holes, or it was some small number. But we would frequently find golf balls in our backyard, and so we would just keep them or collect them or try and sell them or whatever, right? But
did you accomplish selling any ever?
I think so. Yeah, I think we sold like a handful, 5 or 6 of them to some guy. Yeah, or traded them or something.
I mean. Oh, the days that I long for. Once upon a time, we used to make jokes about how Eminem was the most famous rapper and he was white, and Tiger Woods was the most famous golfer and he was black. Back when we had dreams of a post-racial society.
So circling back to this story, even though Foreign Intelligence Surveillance, FISA, court warned the FBI in 2018 that its warrant-free queries, known as backdoor searches, sorry, I'm 12. They were constitutionally alarming. The Bureau still conducted the queries relevant to criminal investigations about, among other things, quote, domestic terrorism involving racially motivated violent extremists, unquote. The court's Judge James E. Boasberg found what he referred to as apparent widespread violations of the querying standard. Okay, so...
Well, for anyone who was wondering where the Constitution's back door is, the FBI found it.
Well, I mean, as far as the Constitution is concerned, I mean, I think the politicians have basically decided they're just going to use that for toilet paper.
If it's a living document, has it died already? Like, can it die if it's living?
Oh, these are good questions. Inquiring minds want to know. So to summarize the paragraph that I just read, basically, one government agency said, hey, you can't use our database to do these warrantless things that you're doing. You should stop in 2018. And they didn't stop. That's really the gist of it. The FBI is still doing warrant-free queries, according to at least this paragraph.
Well, it seems an inevitable change. I mean, they stopped listening to their founding documents a long time ago. It figures that they'd stop listening to each other at this point.
Well, and here's the other thing. As soon as government started collecting data, setting up these server farms and these data farms where they collect all of this stuff, they're spying on your mobile devices already.
I mean, did we think they were going to not use it? Like, it's there.
Right, that's what I'm saying. As soon as they started collecting it, I'm like, and they're like, okay, well, only this one agency is going to be able to search these databases. I'm like, I predict that eventually all law enforcement agencies are going to be able to search these things, whether they have a warrant or not. And guess what? Here we are.
And even if not, then it's just double billing because it's like, hey, NSA, give me information on John Smith. Okay, thanks. Like,
right.
Well, and I mean, you don't have to look hard to find ways that the CIA has been operating in the geographical area known as the United States of America, which is specifically against their entire charter. But,
On one occasion, an FBI analyst ran a multi-search term batch query on Americans that was, quote, in connection with predicated criminal investigations relating to domestic terrorism that returned 33 foreign surveillance results. And not only domestic terror, the FISA court recounts government acknowledgement that at least 40 FBI searches through NSA's warrantlessly collected data involved healthcare fraud, transitional organized crime, violent gangs.
Transnational.
Oh, transnational, sorry. transnational organized crime, violent gangs, and public corruption and bribery. Now, why would the FBI be warrantlessly searching those terms? You must ask yourself. I don't have the answer.
Well, they might have heard about this North Atlantic Trade Organization, which, as far as I can tell, is
NATO.
very clearly a transnational organized crime outfit.
Yes, perhaps they have. On at least one occasion around May 2020, an FBI analyst looked through the foreign NSA troves to vet a potential source in a predicated criminal investigation relating to public corruption. 7 FBI field offices were implicated in these and a number of similar violations, according to a November 18, 2020 FISA court opinion declassified on Monday and signed by Boasberg. 603-283-6160 is the FBI researching you.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
That's right. That's Imitation Drum Roll Live. No, it is Free Talk Live. That's the name of the show you're listening to, Free Talk Live. freetalklive.com. If you've never gone there, go there. See what it's all about. Maybe there's something that will surprise you. We are the live call-in radio talk program where you can take control of the airwaves and talk about whatever's on your mind. The telephone number that you need to do that is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's me, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been talking about this article out of MSN that says a secret court reveals that the FBI hunted for domestic terrorists without a warrant. And not just one time, but this is something they do repeatedly. Because they were warned about doing it in 2018 and, of course, continued to do so multiple times. In other words, the article continues, the FBI continues to perform warrantless searches through the NSA's most sensitive databases, the ones the NSA is not required to get warrants for before filing with communications information. For routine criminal investigations that are supposed to require warrants. Let that sink in for a minute. The FBI is searching the NSA's most sensitive databases, which they are supposed to have a warrant for, but they aren't getting the warrants, and the NSA is just going, oh, well, go ahead.
Which means they have physical access to it,
right,
without having a warrant. They don't. It doesn't have to be sent to them. They just have it on a search.
Yeah, no, the IT guy has installed the app on their desktop in their office and given them a username and password.
It's just a plug in, and they can access it anytime they feel like it.
Yeah, and they go, hey, IT guy, I can't access this NSA database anymore. Oh, I'll fix that for you. And they give them access, is probably what happens. Like, I'm just speculating.
And I got to tell you, I am 100% unsurprised. I mean, once you put together what they call fusion centers, so I'm out here from Denver, Colorado, and it has the nation's largest fusion center.
Yep.
Which, for those of you privileged enough to not know what that is, it's where you take all of the NSA, FBI, all of the alphabet soup, and they talk to each other about things.
Yeah, it's not to be confused with a bunch of people doing jazz music.
Right. Yeah, once they had that set up, it's like, okay, well, this is an inevitability. But it is definitely worth keeping track of as they pay less and less attention to what their own rules are.
So doing these warrantless searches that the FBI is doing through the NSA databases potentially jeopardizes an accused person's ability to have a fair trial, since warrantlessly acquired information is supposed to be inadmissible. The FBI claimed to the court that none of the warrantlessly queried material was used in a criminal or civil proceeding, but such usage at a trial has happened before.
So on that, Melanie, I was hoping you'd pipe in on this, but as far as I knew it, like, not only is that information inadmissible, but anything that information leads to is inadmissible. Is that
not really?
No?
They have whole classes on that, but not really.
Because I thought that was fruit of the poison tree.
That's not really a thing anymore.
I would have thought the same thing, but no.
It's kind of like what we like to call the exclusionary exception, which the official people call it the exclusionary rule. It's kind of like that.
Okay.
You're going to have to spell that one out for me and probably some of the listeners.
Okay, so there's something called an exclusionary rule, implying that it's a rule. And some of the more obnoxious of us at law school would like to call it the exclusionary exception.
And what is it? What is the exclusionary
because it's an exception.
Rule? Hang on,
any
I'll give you a
rule that
definition.
would make you not be able to admit evidence for whatever reason.
A law that prohibits the use of illegally obtained evidence in a criminal trial, according to a quick web search. There are 3 exceptions, apparently, to the exclusionary rule, and they are attenuation of the taint. I don't know what that means.
It's the best metal band name ever.
I think it's about to be. Thanks for coming out. We are attenuation of the taint. At any rate, the 3 exclusions or 3 exceptions to the exclusionary rule are attenuation of the taint, independent source, and inevitable discovery. I get independent source and I get inevitable discovery. I don't get the first one.
Okay, so it's basically a causation. It's basically a causation rule. So say you're in a civil suit and you're saying, okay, you have to prove causation and you have to prove damages. So you're saying, okay, this person drove into my car running a red light and that caused, damage to my engine.
Okay.
Okay, so you got causation and you got damages. There are things that are technically causation, but they're not. They're so attenuated that we don't treat them that way. So say you can't sue somebody and say, well, this guy left for work 10 minutes late, which caused this other guy to be in front of him in traffic, which caused this other guy to run a yellow light and then hit my car.
So it's got to be kind of a proximal cause.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, obviously, in that kind of law, they're going to run wild with it, and it's gone.
What's that movie where, like, a bunch of like things like that sort of happen and then kill people and then
I don't know.
So, Final Destination.
That's the one. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Thanks.
Yeah. So it's one of those, like, they left this loophole in there, and at this point you can drive a Mack truck through it.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's attenuated. It's like, no, it's the single direct cause. Nope, it's attenuated because I said so.
It's interesting because I come from an audio background doing like live sound and sound for bands in recording studios. And attenuation just means how loud is a thing in that industry, right?
It's a regular English word, to be fair.
It is, yeah. But like I only know it in this, sort of myopic view, of this one industry. So to hear it used in another way about something different is foreign to me.
Yeah, once you hit 5 syllables, it tends to be the case.
It is 5 syllables, isn't it? Well. Yeah. Well, at least I can pronounce it, so, here. In general, the FBI and related agencies can query the allegedly foreign-focused NSA communications database for information on Americans for a designated national security purpose to uncover agents of a foreign power, such as spies or foreign terrorists. But none of the identified FBI queries was related to national security, the court found.
Because that's not what the FBI does.
Right.
Even officially, I mean.
Right. Under the relevant surveillance law, the FBI is supposed to return to the FISA court for a warrant to query the troves for a non-national security purpose.
And I mean, it's not like it's difficult to get the FISA court to sign off on things. I mean, they rubber stamp pretty much anything you put in front of them.
Well, and you would think...
But then you got to do it. You got to, get up and walk down the hall.
You would think, especially for another GO, another government organization, right? The FISA court, FBI, oh, yeah, okay, here you go. You'd think it would be just a part of the process, but apparently it's not, and apparently it's been being abused heavily by the FBI in their search for, quote, domestic terrorists, unquote. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live coming up.
Karl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Karl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Karl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
If you're the parent of a man-child, you know how frustrating it can sometimes be. The piercing sound of his video games waking you up at 2 in the morning. His insatiable hunger and inability to cook anything for himself. The messes he makes. The stress can be overwhelming.
Something will set them off, such as their man-child will tell them that they don't know how to tie a tie even though they're almost 30. They'll start shaking them and yelling and saying, "What the hell is wrong with you? Why don't you get a real job instead of working part-time at a board game store?"
The results of shaken man-child syndrome are devastating. Trauma caused by the brain colliding with the inside of the man-child's skull can lead to cognitive disabilities, making it even more unlikely he'll finally marry the girl he's been having a long-distance online relationship with for 6 years. Or it can even lead to death.
He's not spilling cereal all over the couch or leaving his beard clippings in the bathroom sink intentionally. He truly does not know what he's doing.
For the Lab Report, I'm Stuart Adams.
This is the Onion News Network.
Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
Hey guys, Mark Claire here, lionsofliberty.com, where we strive to advance the ideas of liberty daily. We bring you the Morning Roar. That's right, every Monday to Friday we'll have a brand new edition of the Morning Roar, where we provide a roundup of some news stories that you may not find in the mainstream media or even in your typical social media newsfeed. We find stories that relate to the ideas of liberty and provide you with our liberty perspective on them. Every Monday, we have our longest-running feature, Mondays with Murray, named after the great libertarian Murray Rothbard, where we'll examine an article or an excerpt from his works and help convey his view, along with our little spin as well. We wrap it all up every Friday with Felony Friday, where our own John Odermatt goes out and takes a look at some sort of felony. There's felonies committed every day, you know, whether it's a felony committed by the police, a politician, or even an average citizen. You can find all of this and so much more over at lionsofliberty.com. Advancing the ideas of liberty daily.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Welcome back to the program. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It is the Sunday night edition of Free Talk Live. We are here 7 days a week from 7 p.m. till 10 p.m. Eastern Time doing a live show. There's a couple of exceptions every year, like during the Pork Fest and Fork Fest. We won't be here in the studio broadcasting live. What we do is we will have guests come to our setup at these festivals and record a show and then post it the next day. So you'll be hearing a show from the day before. But those are the exceptions. If for some reason the studio can't go, like, oh, I don't know, when the FBI raids the studio and bashes in all the windows and doors and arrests 6 people, we might not be able to have a live show that day. Even though we did have a show the day that they did do that, it only went out on one person's YouTube channel that day and was later uploaded as a podcast. But outside of those types of events, we're here 7 days a week, 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. Eastern time. So please tune in. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
If you want to call in, the telephone number you need is 603-283-6160. And we'll, you might have to wait on hold till we can screen you, that kind of a thing. But if you want to get your voice on the air and talk about anything that's on your mind, anything we're talking about, please use that phone number to do so. Before we go on, I want to tell you that Bitcoin.com is the best source for learning about cryptocurrency. You can go there now, click on Get Started right at the top of the page. Once you do that, you'll find all sorts of valuable information neatly organized to suit your needs. There's no longer any excuse to ignore this insanely important and world-changing information. If you're already a knowledgeable crypto user, you can check out news.bitcoin.com to get the latest headlines of all the news that's relevant to you. Bitcoin.com is your source for everything crypto, like getting a wallet, mining, trading, and all of the latest cryptocurrency news on a very slick and easy-to-use website. Please visit bitcoin.com. All right, so I think we're done with this. Secret court reveals FBI hunted for domestic terrorists without a warrant. Basically, the highlights there are the FBI is sifting through the NSA database without obtaining warrants, which is completely illegal. The courts and the NSA have both warned the FBI as far back as 2018, according to what the courts found, and the FBI continues to do so because apparently they don't know how to restrict access to their applications. Like most companies who have any sort of IT infrastructure would immediately know how to do. At any rate, we're going to move on. I call this article the Doppelganger Raid article, and you'll find out why. The headline doesn't mention anything about this, but the story does. So this is from thenationalpulse.com, a publication I'm not familiar with in any way, shape, or form. But this says, the FBI raids Alaska spa to recover Pelosi's laptop stolen from the U.S. Capitol, owners reveal. That's a very poorly written headline. It's a lot of words. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It doesn't seem to entice people to, it seems rather boring to me. But at any rate, the article is interesting. A couple from Homer, Alaska, Marilyn and Paul Huper, have told the National Pulse that their home and business was raided by federal agents in connection with the January 6th riots in Washington, D.C. The Hupers joined editor-in-chief Raheem Kassam on the National Pulse podcast to discuss the early morning raid, which, as Paul Huper recalls, didn't include FBI authorities even presenting a search warrant. If I recall correctly from the folks that were here when the FBI raided the Free Talk Live studios and the Mighty Moose Mart and the Bitcoin Embassy, nobody presented a warrant either. This seems to be their normal operating procedure these days. I was under the impression that in order for law enforcement to raid a place that somebody had to be like, we got a warrant. You know what I mean? That they could produce on the spot.
I remember that somebody said that they did, but I don't know.
I was under the impression. And like the TV shows make a guy believe that, right? Like the cops will stop. Oh, okay, we can't do anything now. We have to go get a warrant. And they'll go and they'll get the warrant and they'll have the warrant before they do the.
I mean, the thing, especially here, they didn't, nobody let them in. They just kind of.
Oh, they let them
through the window and broke the door.
But even like there was somebody who was filming as it happened that got here no more than, say, 5 or 10 minutes after it was all going down, who was attempting to film, who repeatedly asked for a copy of the warrant.
They don't have to give it to him.
Right.
They have to give it to the person who owns the house, lives in the house, is there at the house. they have to present it before being let in, but they weren't exactly let in here, so they would have been though, which is the thing. But
yeah. Well, at least
they don't just have to give it to any member of the public who wants to see it, but they have to because the alternative is just any cop can just walk in your house when he feels like it.
Are warrants not something that are publicly available? Like, can I do a FOIA on a warrant?
A, it depends, but B, even if a document is publicly available, you have to either go to Pacer or go to that state court or go to
or do a FOIA.
You
or
can't
something.
just walk up to a cop off the street and be like, "Give me this document."
Well, right, but particularly if they're raiding somewhere, I would think that somebody would need to have a copy of said warrant on them.
Yeah. Yes. You can't. They can't enter without a warrant.
Now,
not legally.
Now, if they do that, does that make it more difficult for them in court?
If they do what?
If they say batter down your door without a warrant.
Yeah.
Are they required to present one to anybody at any time, or are they just required to produce it if somebody requests it?
They can make an argument that it's exigent circumstances and they're afraid of, whatever they're afraid of, and that they have to break in. But they have to have it.
Okay. They have to at least have obtained it from like a judge or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
But if they never actually present it to the interested party.
If they have a search warrant and they don't show it to anybody, that's not going to get anything thrown out.
Okay. So Paul Huber recalls the FBI didn't even present a search warrant. Doesn't say if he requested one. He goes on to say they don't even imply a search warrant for the first hour while we're sitting there with handcuffs on, he reiterated. Among the items seized were the family's personal electronics and a handheld copy of the Declaration of Independence.
What is that evidence of?
It's evidence that they might know their rights.
Domestic terrorists.
Oh, wait, no, that's the Bill of Rights. Sorry. The Declaration. Why would you steal a handheld copy of the Declaration?
I want to know what warrant clause that was covered under, that they were allowed to seize a pocket Declaration of Independence.
Probably dangerous documents or something.
Well, you see, 250 years ago, roughly, there was a conspiracy to overthrow the government of Britain in the colonies.
They weren't in Britain, though, so it's fine.
And, Britain considered it Britain.
Britain considered everything Britain. Look at one of those maps from...
Well, and there these people are, sitting with a copy of the manifesto of that conspiracy to overthrow the government.
Yeah, the Declaration of Independence is considered a domestic terrorism document for people who want to overthrow the current government, apparently. While an FBI spokesperson confirmed that the court-authorized law enforcement activity, quote-unquote, was carried out at the Hooper residence, the agency would not comment on its potential relation to events that unfolded in the U.S. Capitol earlier this year. The FBI agents were, however, joined by at least one officer from the U.S. Capitol's police department, according to Hooper. Keep in mind, these guys are in Homer, Alaska.
It's on the other side of the continent from D.C. They should have just called up the FBI and been like, hey, were these people anywhere near D.C. on this day?
Yeah, the Hooper's account of their interactions with federal authorities, which Maryland insists the agents didn't even let me look at their badges long enough to verify, tells a different story. 603-283-6160 is our phone number. We'll tell you more about this doppelganger FBI raid story coming up on Free Talk Live.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm. The LRN.FM's social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
The name of the particular radio program that is tantalizing your eardrums right now, the tintinnabulation that is happening between your brain and your eardrums, is Free Talk Live. We are the live radio call-in talk program where you can talk about anything that's on your mind. The telephone number you need to do that is 603-283-6160. Yes, 603-283-6160. If you would like to comment on anything we've talked about, anything that's on your mind at all, it's fine. It's called Free Talk Live for that reason. In the studio tonight, I am your host. I am the Lord Reverend Dr. Captain Kickass, and joining me,
Biggless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been talking a little bit about this article. We're just kind of getting started into it. From the National Pulse, where the FBI has raided an Alaskan spa to recover Pelosi's laptop stolen from the U.S. Capitol, the owners of the spa revealed. But it's more than just the spa. This article goes on to say, the FBI broke into my house today, 12 agents, in all caps and an exclamation mark. They handcuffed me and Paul. They interrogated us. They searched the house and left with my phones and laptops, she wrote in an April 29th post. The FBI said they were looking for Nancy Pelosi's laptop, so I guess that answers one question. It really did get stolen and is still at large. They tried to get me to admit that I had been in the Capitol building on January 6th.
Okay, so I'm going to have to object to that conclusion because just the fact that the FBI is busting into people's houses alleging to look for a thing does not mean that that thing either in fact exists or in fact is still missing.
It is pretty
Why is
strong
that?
evidence, though.
Well,
it's anecdotal evidence at best.
I don't trust it. I mean,
But so the FBI can lie to you, and it's not a big deal. But if you lie to them,
whether it's a big deal, well, I'm
right.
not saying it's legal or that they'll get away with it if some powers that be decide to prosecute them for it. But I mean, do you trust the FBI? I don't.
Well, I mean,
I sure
there's
don't.
definitely precedent stating that they have no obligation to tell you the truth. But at that point, I got to ask, like, what would be more damaging that they're actually doing that they didn't want to admit to, that they'd be like, yeah, we're looking for Pelosi's laptop.
And like, I'm not saying that it is legal for them to bust into somebody's house alleging to be looking for fictitious evidence. I'm saying I will not put it past these individuals who I cannot describe on the air because of the FCC.
Yeah. We can talk more about this, and there's more to the article, too. But let's go to the phones, and let's go to Nicholas, who's calling from Maryland. Nicholas, you are live on the air at Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Oh, hey there, everybody.
Hello.
I'm just calling in now. I wanted to really talk to you all and get your take on what's going on with the economy right now, because, I mean, what I'm seeing is that a lot of stuff is just really not good. We're seeing money velocity at an all-time low.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing, the 10-year yield, all these other types of stuff going on in the bond market right now.
Yep.
The 10-year yield inverting, yeah.
Yeah, it is not good at all what we are seeing. Money velocity is getting killed right now, and just no one's buying anything, and yet we're being told
destruction.
Yeah, my opinion is that we are seeing the very early stages of hyperinflation. That's my opinion.
So they printed half of the money supply.
Was it half? I thought it was a third.
25, 30%, something like that. Yeah.
Whatever it is, I thought it was half, but a significant portion of the money supply in the history of the U.S. total that has ever been printed in the U.S. Apparently, in between 25 and half of those reserve notes have been printed in the year 2020.
Right, in the last year. And they're going to print more, right? Because Biden's not done. He's got a bunch of trillion and multi-trillion dollar plans going on that are in the works. So they're not done. And that includes more stimulus packages and all that kind of a thing.
And inverted yield curves, my theory when I was a lot 18-ish, 20, was that inverted yield curves, although I did not know what to call them, but that's when you have a higher interest rate for a short-term investment than you do for the same investment at like the exact same CD at the exact same bank, but for a longer time period.
Okay.
And fast food prices. Bob Murphy, the economist, has verified that the inverted yield curve is a warning sign of an upcoming depression, but he didn't say anything about my fast food theory. So he's the economist. I'm not. I mean, they're just printing and printing and printing money. Central banks do have an expiration date, and
they want to own it all.
Going on kind of along where there's some dispute as to whether one from the UK, or I guess it was England at the time, started out as fractional reserve banking. So at what point you count that time run, but depending on how you count that, the U.S. Federal Reserve is longest running so far, so it's not going to last forever.
Yeah, and if you regularly listen to this program, you've probably heard us talk about cryptocurrency, and frankly, that, as far as I'm concerned, I think that's your best bet for actually holding on to value.
Nicholas?
Yes, absolutely. I would certainly agree. We really need to be into things like silver and cryptocurrency, because silver is just extremely undervalued, and the Federal Reserve is just, they're trying to own it all. They're trying to be the lender and buyer of last resort.
Yeah, and so you can print reserve notes all day long. you can't, and they don't even print them all. Usually they just
Right.
add some zeros to a number in a computer, but you can't print lumber, you can't print food, you can't print houses, you can't print anything that you would want to buy with reserve notes. So
Except
that
for
causes,
3D guns. You can print those.
but you can't print the material. You can't just say, poof, I have now $1 trillion more 3D
Right. You
guns.
still have to go buy the
You have to
materials,
buy the
for the
materials and
printer.
have
Right. Yeah.
a 3D printer and put electricity into it. So inflation causes prices to increase, and we've had some pretty significant inflation in the past year.
And you're right about silver and gold. Those are very, very heavily regulated, and they are very, from what I can see, they are definitely suppressing the price of that so that it never actually reaches what it would ordinarily be. Whereas cryptocurrency, they can't just do market manipulations to depress that price. So, like, if you've paid any attention to what Bitcoin, for example, has been doing, where like it had I guess a bubble at 17,000 and now it's at 50 something thousand, like that is what the actual rate of the monetary inflation shows.
I do think that at least BTC, if not all crypto, although because you can exchange them fairly easily, they're not connected, but they're quasi connected. I think that there are some hedge funds and stuff like that are, and Chase Bank, that are trying to see what they can make it do at the moment. So
yeah, it's not a perfect analogy by any stretch, but it is a much more accurate view of what is happening to our currency than if you are just looking at gold and silver.
I mean, and then the lesser elites, as I like to call them, so not your Jerome Powells and whoever his boss even is, but the CEO of Chase Bank and the hedge fund managers and some
the rest of the 1%.
The lesser elites, they're not guaranteed a seat on the ride out of here. So if they're going into an asset, they know that reserve notes aren't going to be worth anything, whether that's next year, whether that's 50 years from now. So if they create demand for another asset like Bitcoin, that it's going to go up in value because of the higher demand. And I don't think that it's peaked or anything like that. They also want to see if they can drive it into the ground, but because it doesn't have universal adoption or even mainstream adoption yet, I think that the price of that is going to long term just go up.
Final thoughts, Nicholas?
Yeah, I'm absolutely floored at what we're seeing right now with the American Families Plan as well. That's really going to drive down the value of education. I really don't see how millennials and Gen Z are really going to be able to get it together, because I'm trying to go to school myself, and I'm worried that my degree is going to be essentially worth nothing. Pretty much just toilet paper.
Many of them are already.
Is what you're going to school, is what you want to do, require a degree by law?
I'm sorry, what do you mean?
Like, is it dentistry or engineering, things that you
something
by
that
law
you
have to have
can't
a
legally
degree?
do without a degree?
So, I want to get into IT. I want to be systems administrator.
Then you don't need a degree for that. Yeah. And hey, thanks for the call, Nicholas.
Yeah, you need a portfolio, not a degree for things like that.
You can get into IT just by showing up to a job and being, hey, I want to be in IT, and taking probably a lesser wage and learning OTJ, or on the job, as it were.
There's all kinds of, for any field, free programs to learn stuff on the internet.
603-283-6160. Hour number 2 of Free Talk Live is on the way.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
A reach across the aisle. Lisa Brady, Fox News. A bipartisan group in Congress renews work on police reform, and some are meeting with family members who lost loved ones in use of force incidents. Fox's Jared Halpern is live on Capitol Hill.
The brother of George Floyd joined other police reform advocates and attorney Benjamin Crump in meetings with key lawmakers negotiating police reform legislation.
They got to hear directly from the families whose blood will be on the legislation that is being proposed.
Crump says South Carolina Republicans Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham listened intently. Scott is leading Senate Republicans in talks with Democrats on a bill expected to address use of force and transparency in law enforcement. President Biden wants reform enacted by the one-year anniversary of Floyd's death next month. Lisa.
Thanks, Jared. The president, meantime, is visiting Georgia, taking his jobs and family's plans on the road. Also meeting with former President Jimmy Carter. The driver in a fiery van crash that killed 6 people last weekend near Atlanta is now charged with multiple counts.
Gwinnett County Police have booked Monica Manayer on suspicion of 6 counts of homicide by vehicle as well as reckless driving. Investigators accuse her of making an unsafe lane change while driving passengers in a van, most of whom were part of a sober living group. They were on their way to a recovery meeting. The van flipped over on I-85 and burst into flames. Passing motorists stopped to try to help pull people from the wreckage. 6 women were killed, and the 10 others inside were injured. The police report indicates, though, that witnesses told them a second vehicle unexpectedly changed lanes in front of the van before it crashed.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Indictments just announced against 8 people in the alcohol-related death of an Ohio college student found unconscious after a frat party in March. The charges range from hazing and assault to involuntary manslaughter. America is listening to Fox News.
Don't let the challenge of creating mobile apps stall your business. Building apps takes time, special skills, and a lot of money. Fortunately, with Sodi Snap, you can unleash your inner developer by allowing you to build and deploy apps fast. You don't need to be a software developer, and you don't need a lot of money. With Sodi Snap, you can create apps up to 10 times faster than traditional methods. Leverage Sodi's free app prototyping service. Visit sodi.net/Fox for a free trial for Fox News radio listeners. That's SOTI.net/Fox.
More than $100 million in medical supplies from the U.S. are on the way to India.
U.S. Air Force launched 2 cargo planes full of badly needed medical supplies from California bound for India. A coronavirus outbreak has led to thousands of deaths in recent days. In a tweet, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said oxygen cylinders as well as N95 masks were part of the aid package. USAID delivered the supplies to Travis Air Force Base located outside San Francisco. The White House said India helped the U.S. when its hospitals were strained early in the pandemic. Now it's time for the U.S. to help India. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
India is having a record surge in COVID cases, topping 300,000 new cases per day. The French president laying out a new 4-step plan to reopen his country, including the return of outdoor terraces for cafes and restaurants in May, along with museums and theaters under certain conditions, though France's case numbers and hospitalizations remain high. A new poll finds many Americans support athletes and teams speaking out on issues.
Remember when there was a strong separation between sports and politics? Not anymore. A poll conducted for Seton Hall University by YouGov found that the majority of Americans support sports teams, leagues, and players using their influence to affect social change. Among poll questions, should teams and leagues use their influence? 48% said yes, 36% no, the rest undecided.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
A cool guy from middle school is still sporting his fat pair of Jinkos. A stunned St. Peter's Square crowd hears the Pope getting bitched out by God, and an 8th grader caked in makeup is probably really confident. This is The Onion Week in Review. This week, a Pew Research Center poll found that the vast majority of Americans would watch a television show called Love Trap, with most saying that regardless of the show's genre or quality, they would tune in weekly to see its stars stumble into romantic triangles, double-cross one another, and contend with whatever the titular love trap refers to. The survey confirmed that 62% of Americans would likely watch Love Trap to see a shrewd but cold-hearted Southern belle named Tammy. 23% of the nation hoped the show would be referred to as The Trap by its most loyal fans, and 15% of respondents said they simply needed something to watch. And in this week's science news, a biologist completes a 5-minute study of the pathetic organism in his mirror. In other news, a man confidently hits send on the worst job application a company has ever seen.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Yeah, all right. Thanks for jumping in.
Now it's a thing.
Just in case any of our listeners weren't clear, the show that you are listening to is called Free Talk Live.
If you were unclear on that, hopefully you're not driving.
Right. What is Free Talk Live? You might be asking, and ask you might. It is a live call-in radio talk program where you can call in and talk about anything, whatever's on your mind. We talk about things generally from the perspective of freedom and peace and prosperity. But as far as I know, we might be the only national radio program that allows you to call in and talk about whatever's on your mind. So if you want to do that, you need to dial this phone number, 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And we've been talking about this article from the National Pulse in which the FBI broke into somebody's house in Homer, Alaska. Marilyn and Paul Huper specifically. Marilyn goes on to say, they tried to get me to admit that I had been in the Capitol building on January 6th, referring to the FBI, which I hadn't. And then they threatened to arrest me for obstruction of justice if I didn't give them the answers they wanted, she added. Marilyn Huper attributed the raid to a case of mistaken identity, pointing out several distinctions between her physical appearance and the lady believed to have stolen Nancy Pelosi's laptop. She said, apparently I have a doppelganger who was part of the Capitol breach, but that was ID'd as me. What the heck? They could have done a face recognition with my state driver's license and noticed that I have attached earlobes and she doesn't. She has heavily arched eyebrows and I don't. Not to mention, she was wearing an ugly black sweater with white snowflakes on it. You'd have to pay me lots of money to get me to wear a sweater, let alone an ugly one, and shiny black knee-high boots.
And the thing is, aside from the fact that the FBI could have asked the NSA, because they apparently have no problem doing that, they could have, since you're saying somebody went from Alaska to D.C., they could have checked to see if this woman got on a plane.
Yep.
She technically could have drove. Does she even have a passport? Because they know that. What does her phone location data say? Was she on this side of the continent or the other side of the continent where you're saying she was?
Well, so
this was very easy to look up.
She was actually at the Capitol, but she didn't go in. She was amongst the crowd outside of the Capitol. However, the post was accompanied by, and it says the following graphic, which I can't show you on the radio, but there's a graphic here, which draws several distinctions in physical appearance between Marilyn and the FBI's person of interest. And we'll share this article with you on our social media so you can see this photo. But you can see that, I can tell the difference between these two ladies just from, and in one photo, the Marilyn has a face mask on. I can still tell the difference between her and the lady of interest who's wearing the ugly sweater, as it were.
Well, you just can't expect every, bureaucracy of the federal government to investigate things. I mean, I'm sure they have a particular agency that handles that.
Yeah. Huber shared the same account of the raid with outlets including Anchorage Daily News and during a radio interview with KSRM-AM. I assume that's a Alaska radio station. The couple, which has donated to several Republican candidates, including Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and Kelly Loeffler, has never denied attending the January 6th rally in Washington, D.C. Paul Huber's Instagram page contains an image of his wife at the Capitol complex. But the pair never entered the building. Indeed, only attending for part of the day before leaving the city to return home. The closest they got was outside the Capitol hours before the original breach, where they say they stayed for around 30 minutes before leaving.
Yeah, so if they were there, that's a little bit different, but
that is less egregious, definitely.
That doesn't.
Yeah, but it doesn't warrant the FBI to raid your house.
Well, apparently they do it without warrant.
Yeah.
It still doesn't prove that this laptop exists, or not that it doesn't prove that it exists, but it also doesn't prove that it's still missing. And it could just be that the FBI is lying bitches, but it could also be that Nancy Pelosi told the FBI that the computer was stolen and missing, and that's what they're going off of. I mean, the fact that they said I'm looking for X does not mean that X is currently missing.
Right.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if she's put that laptop in the same place as Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yeah, it's a convenient way to get rid of something if you know.
What's the difference between Pelosi's laptop and Hunter Biden's laptop?
I don't know that. I have no reason to believe that Pelosi was raping kids.
Now, my first thought
is if they're the same laptop.
Now, my first thought is like,
did Pelosi borrow Hunter's laptop?
I doubt it.
Take it to the Capitol.
I mean, maybe these are these are Alaska people. Maybe they're off the grid kind of people. But can't they just go to Google and be like, "Hey, where was this phone at this time?"
Yeah, but Google, it's not necessarily that sensitive to where it's going to say, "Oh, they were standing outside of the building and not 20 feet." Over
well, no, but I mean, in the article, she left before the breach even occurred. Or did I?
That is true.
Yeah, but where did she go? Did she go down the street, or was she in Anchorage again?
Well, right, but
saying I was 20 feet away is a whole different defense than saying I was in Alaska.
The video footage that they have shows that they were there for Donald Trump's speech, which ended roughly 30 or 40 minutes before the breach occurred, which coincides with their story of we were there for like a half hour and then we left.
Yeah, weirdly enough, if you were there for all of Trump's speech, then you weren't even there when the breaking and entering occurred.
So, yeah, either way, this seems really dumb. And like you said, Melanie, it could have been handled in many different ways.
I said that thinking that she was in Alaska.
Well, even so, they could have done more, desk work before
they
raided their place. Yeah, they could have done some investigation before they sent 12 FBI agents in on a raid. That's all I'm saying. At any rate, that's about the extent of this article. They're looking for somebody else. It wasn't this lady. She doesn't really look anything like her.
I mean, there's
I don't know what else to say about it.
There's a little bit of similarity in the facial structure, but like
sure, but again,
yeah, no.
If you'd have done more than like, oh my God, that's her, right? Like if you'd have done more than just a cursory look at this.
Well, that makes me wonder, like, is the FBI solely relying on algorithms at this point where like they don't even have a human being look at the pictures?
Yeah, I don't know. Do you know what you call an algorithm that's nothing but parody songs? It's a weird algorithm.
You're Yankovicing my chain.
I am actually, yes. Let's see. That's probably the last of the humor you're going to get from me tonight. But I say that now, and you'll probably get like weird dad jokes out of me for like the next hour or something. That's really the end of the article. Do you have any other thoughts?
I mean, not really. I at this point, I don't know what they did and didn't look up. I can't now say it was definitely incompetence the way I was saying when I thought she was in Alaska. Maybe, I mean, it probably was because these are not like good human beings, but
I mean, I can't
definitively prove that at this point.
I don't see why your original commentary doesn't apply regardless of whether or not she attended the rally.
Because you're going to have very different, location data if you're in Anchorage than if you're across the street from where they're saying you were or in front of the building that they're saying you were inside of.
Right. Okay, so they've got that, but what other evidence did they have
I don't know.
about the laptop to like warrant a 12-person FBI raid
I don't know.
in Homer, Alaska?
And I still think that this is pretty good evidence that there was a Nancy Pelosi laptop stolen. And I think that whatever was on the laptops stolen was why Time magazine published, "Hey, here's how we totally rigged the election." Because that way they could get the jump on this before whatever was on those laptops came out some other way.
Do you have any evidence of this? It's a theory, right?
Maybe.
It's a theory, yes? Okay.
Wait, don't be saying maybe you have that kind of evidence on the radio. You'll disappear.
Yeah, we don't need any more of that. We like to keep the hosts that we have. Thank you.
Just a thought of what would you find on Nancy Pelosi's laptop.
603-283-6160.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
When commercials come on, don't push the button. Instead, listen. Even if you don't sell things for a living, you're still selling in the various conversations and transactions that make up your busy day. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important, especially if you're a job seeker. So take a lesson from Madison Avenue. Often the fewer words, the more effective the message. Like Jiffy Lube, where you never need an appointment, or the Office Max ad that says, you supply the ambition, we supply everything else. How about online ticket broker StubHub.com, the way in when it's sold out, or CyberCupidMatch.com's seductive, go ahead, it's okay to look. How cleverly and succinctly can you distill your message? For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
Yes, come on and tune in to Free Talk Live. Yeah, if you want to talk on the radio about anything that's on your mind nationwide and on the internet and on a couple of satellite stations, why, you need to call 603-283-6160 between the hours of 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. 7 days a week. That's how you get on the air here at Free Talk Live. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain,
Peakless Mountaineer,
and Melanie.
On March 16th, 2021, terrorist agencies calling themselves government conspired together and raided the Free Talk Live studio, the Bitcoin Embassy, and the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Renee and Andy Spinella, and Colleen Fordham. These 6 people are called the Crypto Six. They were then arrested and taken into custody. Ian Freeman and the person named Nobody both remain in custody to this day. What can you do to help? Check out thecrypto6.com. There's a bunch of information there, and there's also multiple ways in which you can donate to their legal defense fund, because the charges they're facing are not a joke. It's going to take some serious legal experts and teams behind them to protect the Crypto Six from further aggression from the state. This case will most likely set precedent that will affect the world of cryptocurrency for decades to come. Help them in their fight for liberty and financial freedom by contributing to their legal defense fund at thecrypto6.com. Again, it's thecrypto6.com. Your donations are appreciated. There's also a bunch of information up there too, videos and updates and et cetera and so on, that kind of thing. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. Melanie, you brought this in from Bitcoin.com. The Fed plans to unveil digital dollar prototypes in July.
Yeah, and this is, even openly has been coming for a minute. This article is from March, and we just never got to it. I don't know. I don't remember.
A whole month ago. Well, I guess
I don't remember if I brought it in or I missed some days also when I was sick. But
And I think it is worth pointing out that, yeah, they have been very open about all of the what would otherwise be a conspiracy. I mean, the World Economic Forum has its own podcast. They will definitely talk your ear off about the CDBC.
Yeah, and normal people are not reading the Federal Reserve blog like I am. So if you're just living your life and trying to go to work and pay for your bills, you probably won't notice it. But if you're listening to this driving on the way home, you have crazy people like me who read the Federal Reserve blog who will, I don't want to say tell you what you need to know because that makes it sound like I'm trying to control you, but, bring you things that I find of interest.
Well, so, I mean, one thing that I find with a lot of crazy stuff that they do is at first it's like, no, of course they're not doing that. And then it's, well, of course they're doing that. And
We've always been at war with Eurasia.
Right.
And just so all of our listeners understand the general perspective here of the Federal Reserve, well, it's not federal and they don't have anything in reserve.
Well, I disagree that I would call the Federal Reserve the real government.
Okay. But they're not really federal, and they don't have anything in reserves.
They don't have any reserves, but
whether they're federal or not might be different since the CARES Act. Actually,
they're as federal as Federal Express.
Well, they were before the CARES Act.
Federal Express is heavily subsidized, so I mean that's.
Oh well, okay. At any rate,
but anyway,
go on.
Almost like there's this fascist entanglement of corporations and government.
Weird.
So, digital dollar prototypes coming soon. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said last week, so that would have been mid-March, as part of an event held by the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, on central bank digital innovation, that the U.S. Central Bank is actively exploring the launch of a digital dollar. Now, not thinking about it, but actively exploring the launch part. That to me makes it sound like it's past the planning or past the consideration phase.
Yeah, they're not considering the engineering of it. They're not considering the structure of it. They're considering the launch of it.
The thing that strikes me here is, my question is, well, there's already a bunch of stable coins that are pegged to the dollar. Why don't they just adopt one of those?
Well, why would they do that? That doesn't give them any power.
Exactly.
They still control the dollar. So.
Well, so here's the thing. With the stable coins, if they decide that X, Y, or Z transaction does not follow the laws of the United States, or if it's an international transaction, United States or whichever other...
Let's just be clear here. This article says that this is a digital dollar, and we're conflating it now with cryptocurrency. So there's a difference.
I'm contrasting here.
Okay.
So with cryptocurrency,
I'm conflating. So.
Right. So with cryptocurrency, if the United States federal government decides, okay, this transaction doesn't follow the rules, they can't stop your tethered dollar coin. But if they see that with their central bank digital currency, they absolutely can stop that or reverse it.
Right, but there's nothing to say that a central bank digital currency can even interface with cryptocurrency.
Okay, so most Federal Reserve notes are digital at this point anyway.
Right, I was going to mention that as well. And I'm not even saying
that's a problem per se, but what they really want is to get rid of cash. Because if you don't have cash, you can't have a run on the banks.
Right.
And if you can't have a run on the banks, then you can institute negative interest rates, which he has talked about before. And you can print however much you want because there's nothing anybody can do about it other than move to a different currency. And then at that point, you probably have kind of a military occupation domestically or something like that. So,
like we kind of do now.
And they are absolutely headed in the direction of negative interest rates, because basically their method for finding out whether or not we're in trouble is to be like, okay, well, have interest rates gone along the same trajectory with the money printing? And they're like, oh, yep, interest rates are fine. They haven't jacked up. But they have the spigot when it comes to interest rates because they determine the base interest rate that everything is based on.
I like that word, spigot. It's a good word.
Yeah. It's a little faucet that they've got the knob on, and they can change the interest rates for everything based on this one fundamental interest rate.
And Greece did this a few years ago. So this is not just something I'm making up. Jerome Powell admitted that he was thinking about it, and Greece did it. Instituted negative interest rates. So
now, was that around the same time that they started doing the bail-in, where they just straight up stole money from everyone's bank accounts?
Yeah, that's what a negative interest rate is.
Bail in is a far more accurate term.
Oh, so that was the method that they used to take people's.
Well, yeah. So because with a positive interest rate, they deposit 1%, which is it's more like at this point 1/100% of money into your account. If it's a negative interest rate, then the opposite happens.
Right.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was under the impression that they just that they like handpicked. Okay, this one, and this one. We're going to take this amount, but no, they're across the board stealing little bits from them.
Well, and they're going to continue to do so. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about the fact that they're exploring it, much less close to like launching some digital version of the dollar. It all seems like it's very ugly from my perspective. My gut tells me that it's just wrong on many levels. More Free Talk Live on the way.
Free Talk Live.
Wire 47 plus nations going down and blockading what is called the South Pole.
Where did you hear this?
Look it up, mate.
Okay, I'm looking right now.
Where do your research?
Well, no. See, when somebody calls in and makes a claim, they should be able to back that claim. So if you're telling me that's happening, then I'd like to see some sort of proof of that. Now, a quick Google search for South Pole blockade.
Oh, you trust Google, do you?
Okay, well, what search engine should I use? Where would I find information about this?
You can do WikiLeaks, Wikipedia, or WikiLeaks.
Okay, don't say the S word or else we're going to have to drop your call.
Dude, it's all over the news.
No, you can't say that on
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Is spreading the message of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace around the globe worth $2 per month to you? As you may already know, in addition to our internet feed, LRN.FM broadcasts on free-to-air satellite across North and Central America, as well as Sub-Saharan Africa. And we've been available on satellite for free 24/7 since 2010. The LRN.FM free-to-air satellite signal is reaching some of the most oppressive regimes in the world, and there's no doubt our ideas are making an impact. You can learn more about the channel's impact by watching the 3-minute video at fund.lrn.fm. If you'd like to help free minds globally with our ideas of liberty, cryptocurrency, and peace, you can donate as little as $2 per month via fund.lrn.fm. You can help us continue and expand our satellite broadcast to multiple continents. Visit fund.lrn.fm today, and thank you for your help. Don't forget to share the link on social media. That's fund.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
I've been told no in many different ways.
I give you an order and you're going to obey it. George, you can go this way.
You can do that and you have to leave here.
You cannot bring signs into the rally.
Walk with me. Well, I'm comfortable here, actually. Whoa, Hey, who do you think you are? Excuse me.
There is no video and audio allowed in this office.
No, I have work today.
You ain't gonna make it.
Wait a minute.
Hey! Oh my God! Unbelievable!
Why are you running from me? Because you're scared me. What am I being detained for?
You're being served.
What is this?
You're being served.
What is this?
Bureaucrats
Democrats have a funny way of telling people no.
That's the sound of the men working on the chain.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is Free Talk Live, the live call-in radio program where you can call, talk about anything that's on your mind. The telephone number in studio is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. An automated voice is standing by now, waiting to put you on hold until we can screen you. In the studio tonight, it is myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been talking about this article from Bitcoin.com where it appears that, is it the Federal Reserve? Are they acting in conjunction with the U.S. government? I assume they are, even though there's nothing federal about them.
Well, they, quote, own. Own is not the right term, but because it implies actual rights, but, quote, own the U.S. government.
Sure. So at any rate, the Federal Reserve has been actively working on a central bank digital currency, and we can get more into that. And we also have a call on hold that we'll get to. But first, I need to tell you that Freedom's Phoenix is a liberty-oriented news aggregation website. Do you want the newest and freshest stories and perspective on current events from those who value liberty? Well, freedomsphoenix.com has it. Their daily dispatch is the best way to stay up to date on science, technology, historical findings, liberty news, government overspending, and, of course, the rise of the police state. Which, when I talk about the police state now, I'm changing my phrasing. I don't talk about I talk about the militarized police state. I add that because I think it's an important word. Anyway, you can find out more at freedoms, with an S, phoenix.com. That's freedomsphoenix.com. Let's go to the phones right away. Let's go to Robert from South Carolina. Robert, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to say that I think the most important thing that we should be discussing, the most important matter of our time, actually, is a little thing called telomere extension. It's the way in which we could go back to our prime, each and every one of us. And it's the one thing I think that we're really being distracted with. We're being distracted by other things, really, and the government really doesn't want us to think about this too much because it's going to be a major problem for them. If people stop dying and go back to their primes, what's going to happen with new people who are being born? What would happen is we'd have overpopulation occurring in a relatively short order unless we figure out a way out of it. If we have the telomere extension process.
Well,
available.
so
Hang on, just for our listeners who have no idea what Robert's talking about. The telomere extension is this. Researchers at Stanford University have developed a new procedure to lengthen telomeres in chromosomes. That's at the cellular level. In so doing, they've effectively increased the number of times cells can divide, thus turning back the clock on the cell's aging process. So the theory is that if you can turn back the clock on aging one cell, you can do it for many cells, and that's why Robert is talking about turning back the clock on aging.
And this has not been perfected in humans yet, correct?
Right. To my knowledge.
Now,
they did it with mice about 20 years ago. My mom and my sister were involved in research, and also a researcher from Germany and others as well.
But that
and it was at the
doesn't
NIH
mean they know how to do it in
Washington,
humans.
D.C. And my mom said they're sweeping under the carpet. Want to hear? So I said sure. So we rode over there from her house just near the institution itself, and the person who was in charge of it came out and she asked me, "Do you do any reporting?" I said, "You said, yeah, I do some reporting for Germany Today." Oh, she said, "Great, because there was an error in the press, and that was supposed to be the error in the press." So that's how strongly they swept it under the carpet because they realized.
Okay, hang on for a second, Robert. Hang on.
Robert.
Sure.
So the fact that they've managed to do this in mice is actually less indicative than you might think. So one of the things that happened with all of our lab rats is they ended up evolving to all of the testing that we were doing on them, so that they had these ridiculously long telomeres, which... So here's the thing about telomeres. So what your body tries to do is strike a balance between toxicity and cancer. And the longer your telomeres, the greater your toxicity you can deal with, and by dint of that, the more times your cells can replicate. However, the problem with it is that by having this longer telomere, you are massively increasing your probability of acquiring cancers. And that's what they've found in all of these lab rats, because they would do, makeup testing and all that sort of thing, just all sorts of chemical testing on these lab rats. And if you want to look into it, a guy named Brett Weinstein actually published the first papers on this, but the lab rats ended up evolving longer and longer and longer telomeres in response to all of the lab testing, which is why for the longest time it's this gives you cancer, that gives you cancer, this gives you cancer, because on these lab rats it did, because of their exceptionally long telomeres.
And just to set the record straight, there are human studies of telomere shortening, at least, that's just through a quick search. Go ahead, Robert.
Well, the way it was explained to me, and I have another friend who knows about it as well down here in Charleston, and the way it was explained to me is that the ends of the telomeres can actually be re-raveled. What happens over time is they kind of unravel and dissipate, but that process, like I say, is reversible. And what they were working on, what they were going to try to work on, was to make it sure that cancer, but they got this idea from cancer cells, because cancer cells know no aging. So they brought it over from cancer cells, and they wanted to preclude that cancer could be carried over, and that's what they wanted to work on. And that's when the government stopped the testing at the research at the NIH. But my mom and my sister, my mom was totally convinced it was possible. In fact, she said to me that I would just miss it, and my sister, who's 10 years younger than I am, would just catch it. So she even had an idea of when it would be. And my mom, by the way, has a PhD in administration from New York University, and she's also a member of the Future Society. So she probably has a pretty good idea.
Is she a biologist?
My mom was not a biologist. My sister's a dermatologist here in Mount Pleasant, and my mom had a master's degree in homeopathic medicine. Was involved with my sister.
Yeah, this is an interesting, area that I would like to look into more. And thanks for the call today, Robert, because it can affect a whole bunch of different things. Mm-hmm. But it looks like, at least from my cursory search, that at best it's in a human testing phase.
Yeah, it sounds like something we should look into. I'm not a biologist. It seems like we're looking into it. Like, just because we've discovered a thing and find that it can be useful does not mean that it is market ready.
Right. Okay.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it was a suppressed topic, because certainly they don't want the plebs living forever.
Just this article that I'm reading from PRN Newswire talks about they use HBOT, or hyperbaric oxygen therapy, to help them in increasing the length of the telomeres. The long and the short of it, or at least the last bit of the paragraph at the end, says, with this pioneering study, we have opened a door for further research on the prolonged cellular impact of HBOT to reverse the aging process. So apparently what they're doing is having an effect. It seems to be having an impact on reversing the aging process, and they hope to prove and do more with more research. So that's kind of the long and the short. So what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, the Federal Reserve.
Bank.
Yeah, go ahead, Melanie.
So the U.S. Federal Reserve has been actively working on a central bank digital currency. At least 2 prototypes of a digital dollar are near completion, developed by officials at the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston and the Mass Institute of Technology, MIT.
MIT, huh? Mm.
They plan to unveil their research. Is that even research? As soon as July, said James, I can't pronounce that.
Kunha,
who leads the project for the Boston Fed. He told Bloomberg, well, we're we're going to have to get back to that. So
Okay. 603-283-6160 is the telephone number if you'd like to get your thoughts on anything we've talked about or anything that's on your mind here at Free Talk Live. We'll talk about the Federal Reserve's new digital currency plus a lot more.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM. I'm grateful to have heard from some of our satellite listeners recently. I appreciate knowing that people are out there who like what we do and are willing to support it financially. LRN.FM's free-to-air satellite feeds blanket most of 2 continents. It was my goal to put our channel there so people without internet could receive our programs and feed pirate radio stations. We started a fundraiser on Patreon a few years ago to back the satellite channels. I recently announced that I was considering canceling the feeds, and donations increased from 15 to 20% of our costs, which are around $1,000 per month. That's a good start, and to incentivize more contributions, the Shire Free Church will be matching every dollar. Can we reach $500 per month? With your help, we can. You can join our satellite fundraiser for just $2 a month at fund.lrn.fm. If we raise enough to keep both of the channels on the air, awesome. If we raise more, I'll add more channels. If not, we can shut them down and go internet only. It's up to you. Thank you for your support. fund.lrn.fm. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's the kitties.
And suddenly I think that all electric guitars are actually cats.
It is Free Talk Live. We are the live call-in national radio talk program and also international because we're on the internet and some satellite channels where you can call in, talk about anything that's on your mind. The telephone number you need is a United States-based phone number. It is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160 if you'd like to call and join the conversation. In the studio tonight, I am your host, the Reverend Captain Kickass. Joining me,
Bakeless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been talking about the Federal Reserve plans to unveil digital dollar prototypes in July. Melanie's been regaling us with this article from Bitcoin.com.
So the guy who's in charge of the project...
Is it James Cunha? I think we found the pronunciation in the brief.
Yes. He told Bloomberg the Boston Fed and MIT hope to unveil some of their work in the third quarter, including at least 2 prototype software platforms that can move, store, and settle transactions made with digital dollars. Once the prototypes are released, others will be able to see and build on the code, he explained. Now this could just be typical government budget incompetence, but they've been, quote, working on this for a long time. We already have programs that can move numbers around. We already have the electronic banking system software. What is it that they're exactly doing? It's not that hard to just not encrypt something.
Well,
you just don't encrypt it.
I wonder, though, like, if they're trying to usurp the use case of Ripple, XRP, right? Ripple's claim to, what it's going to do, what its feature is, its main feature, is that it's supposed to help banks settle with the internal banking system, right? It's supposed to make that more easy to do. And so that's sort of its whole sales pitch, if you will, that its coin is designed to. Now, this is some people don't call it a cryptocurrency. It doesn't meet all the criteria, but it's essentially a cryptocurrency that is supposed to do that.
It's just an evil cryptocurrency.
I'm wondering if they're just going, hey, Ripple has a good idea. We do need to have an easier software settlement process interbank, right? We're talking about all the Federal Reserves in all of the different countries.
But we already have like ledger software. This just doesn't seem like a years and years project to me.
So 2 things. One, from what I understand, Ripple is not a cryptocurrency because it doesn't have a distributed network. It has trusted networks, which means it's not cryptocurrency. It's just a new currency. And number 2, so what your original question of why would they need all of this time to work on this? Well, they need all this time to work on this because they're going to want absolute control of it, and they're going to want it to have every segment.
Regular software can already do that.
Regular software already
regular software does not typically have access to central banks, but there's software that will move numbers and balance accounts. Like, this isn't some kind of new niche thing that they're doing. They're trying to make it sound like that.
No. There is actually a new thing they're doing here. So as it currently exists, at least to my understanding, you don't have everything stopping off at the Bank of International Settlements before it goes off somewhere else.
Okay,
With this, you will.
But there's banking software that goes to banks and settles transactions.
There is.
It doesn't seem structurally different to me to go to this bank instead of this bank.
Okay, so the Bank of International Settlements is not actually a bank. It is essentially a court system. It's essentially the world's first court. The first world court is the Bank of International Settlements. So what this is going through is fundamentally world government. So it goes through the world government. The world government approves each and every transaction to its satisfaction, and then those transactions are carried out. That's what is taking so long.
Okay, but they've been doing this for years, and so to me, either
they have not been getting approval from the Bank of International Settlement for every single transaction.
They've been working on the software.
Could it be as easy as the reason government usually takes so long to do anything?
It could be.
That they just are trying to justify the budget that they've been given to develop this thing.
We think we can get a grant for this much, so we're going to milk it for all we can.
Right.
Regular government inefficiency. Or it could be, what are they actually doing?
Yeah.
Because this just sounds really simple. What are they actually putting in the software that they're not telling you that they're doing that is actually taking all of this time.
Well, they're probably training algorithms to function according to their Byzantine legal system as far as transaction requirements go.
I feel like the way this article is written so far, anyway, as far as we've gotten, I feel like the article is talking as if this is going to be a consumer release, not an intra-bank release, as I mentioned earlier. So I just want to correct myself there. I was thinking maybe they were trying to compete with, interbank settlements, all of the different or centralized banks around the world settling with each other. But no, this is...
Well, the customer part, I mean, it still has to go to...
Sure, but this is the way this article is written implies that this is going to be an everyman digital dollar, not something that's limited to banks or central banks.
Yes.
That definitely...
That's the only way it's really useful to them, because that way you can do the negative interest rate thing.
What else does the article say?
There are major issues that the central bank, the Treasury, and Congress must address regarding the digital dollar, he explained. These include whether the Fed should host customer accounts itself, whether to allow anonymity. Okay, that's funny. And what protections customers would have in case of a cyber attack or erroneous transaction. Well, we have electronic transactions now, and we have
it's so funny
rules and procedures for erroneous transactions and fraudulent transactions. So, okay.
But those are being done by companies instead of by governments.
Right.
No, they're not. They're being done by banks,
which
are subsidiaries of the Federal Reserve, which is a government.
What's funny
Apparently
is
that's just not government enough for them.
What's funny to me is that
it's as government as you get. It's a central bank.
All of these things are already addressed by cryptocurrency, right? All of these issues, right? Whether the Fed should host customer accounts. No, they shouldn't. You should have your own account. You should hold your keys, right? Whether to allow anonymity. Well, okay, Bitcoin itself is pseudonymous, and so are many other cryptocurrencies, but there are privacy coins that you can use. There are mixers you can use to, sort of dilute your transactions and create anonymity. So you've got that. What protections consumers would have in case of a cyber attack or erroneous transaction? Well, because the blockchain is I call it the 3D ledger because it's triple entry ledger. It already has solved the Byzantine generals problem, and so it already is a trusted network that is being attacked daily by not only governments but hackers as well, and still remains far more solid than any centralized currency.
Yeah, and that's really what they're trying to deal with here is the fact that they are still, as a trusted network system, they are still vulnerable to cyber attack. Whereas these distributed ledger systems, because they are distributed, because there are so many computers putting so much power into processing this, they're completely invulnerable to cyber attack.
I mean, they're not really vulnerable to cyber attacks in any meaningful way because, okay, yes, you can attack the system. You can't really just clean out somebody's account as a cyber attack or clean out a bank's account because they can, since none of it is real, they can just put it back and be like, okay, it's $500,000 again.
Right. And so, I mean, with our current system, you have like MasterCard, for example, that you can call up and be like, this was an error and this shouldn't have been sent to this person, and they can reverse that transaction. But I don't think that I don't think that the Fed is willing to accept that level of control. They want specifically a central bank and its agencies and affiliates doing the checking and the decision making of whether transactions get reversed or not. Because, I mean...
That just seems like a really petty thing for them to want.
Well, I mean, like right now, if...
it's more of an administrative.
Like, MasterCard could say, I'm not going to reverse this transaction even though you don't think that it followed your rules. They could. They don't, but they could. And that's just an insufficient level of control for government.
I don't think that they care about that on that level. Like, they don't care if, your coffee got double charged or not.
Oh, MasterCard?
The Federal Reserve does not care.
Yeah, they don't. Can you imagine the lack of customer service that having an account with the Federal Reserve with some digital dollars would be like?
Oh,
It'd be horrifying. Be horrifying. You can't even get any kind of customer service now from like theirs. That's the IRS, by the way. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live is on the way. Hour number 3 is up next.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
A reach across the aisle. Lisa Brady, Fox News. A bipartisan group in Congress renews work on police reform, and some are meeting with family members who lost loved ones in use of force incidents. Fox's Jared Halpern is live on Capitol Hill.
The brother of George Floyd joined other police reform advocates and attorney Benjamin Crump in meetings with key lawmakers negotiating police reform legislation.
They got to hear directly from the families whose blood will be on the legislation that is being proposed.
Crump says South Carolina Republicans Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham listened intently. Scott is leading Senate Republicans in talks with Democrats on a bill expected to address use of force and transparency in law enforcement. President Biden wants reform enacted by the one-year anniversary of Floyd's death next month. Lisa.
Thanks, Jared. The president, meantime, is visiting Georgia, taking his jobs and family's plans on the road. Also meeting with former President Jimmy Carter. The driver in a fiery van crash that killed 6 people last weekend near Atlanta is now charged with multiple counts.
Gwinnett County Police have booked Monica Manayer on suspicion of 6 counts of homicide by vehicle as well as reckless driving. Investigators accuse her of making an unsafe lane change while driving passengers in a van, most of whom were part of a sober living group. They were on their way to a recovery meeting. The van flipped over on I-85 and burst into flames. Passing motorists stopped to try to help pull people from the wreckage. 6 women were killed, and the 10 others inside were injured. The police report indicates, though, that witnesses told them a second vehicle unexpectedly changed lanes in front of the van before it crashed.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Indictments just announced against 8 people in the alcohol-related death of an Ohio college student found unconscious after a frat party in March. The charges range from hazing and assault to involuntary manslaughter. America is listening to Fox News.
Don't let the challenge of creating mobile apps stall your business. Building apps takes time, special skills, and a lot of money. Fortunately, with Sodi Snap, you can unleash your inner developer by allowing you to build and deploy apps fast. You don't need to be a software developer, and you don't need a lot of money. With Sodi Snap, you can create apps up to 10 times faster than traditional methods. Leverage Sodi's free app prototyping service. Visit sodi.net/Fox for a free trial for Fox News radio listeners. That's SOTI.net/Fox.
More than $100 million in medical supplies from the U.S. are on the way to India.
U.S. Air Force launched 2 cargo planes full of badly needed medical supplies from California bound for India. A coronavirus outbreak has led to thousands of deaths in recent days. In a tweet, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said oxygen cylinders as well as N95 masks were part of the aid package. USAID delivered the supplies to Travis Air Force Base located outside San Francisco. The White House said India helped the U.S. when its hospitals were strained early in the pandemic. Now it's time for the U.S. to help India. At the Pentagon, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
India is having a record surge in COVID cases, topping 300,000 new cases per day. The French president laying out a new 4-step plan to reopen his country, including the return of outdoor terraces for cafes and restaurants in May, along with museums and theaters under certain conditions, though France's case numbers and hospitalizations remain high. A new poll finds many Americans support athletes and teams speaking out on issues.
Remember when there was a strong separation between sports and politics? Not anymore. A poll conducted for Seton Hall University by YouGov found that the majority of Americans support sports teams, leagues, and players using their influence to affect social change. Among poll questions, should teams and leagues use their influence? 48% said yes, 36% no, the rest undecided.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
At Greyhound, we're committed to providing our customers with an exceptional travel experience, and that's why we've outfitted our 2014 line of motor coaches with new deluxe roadway seating that's moderately less disgusting than our traditional fare tickets. For a flat surcharge of $35, customers can upgrade to our exclusive deluxe seating area, where select seats have been refurbished with premium upholstery, boasting significantly less crumbs and Wendy's bags stuffed between the seats, guaranteed to leave you somewhat less repulsed than you are normally. Relax in the comfort that when your feet stick to the floor, they'll be sticking to up to 65% less indeterminate dried fluids. Passengers who upgrade to our elite seating experience will have the option of personalizing the garbage surrounding their seat with a pre-ride selection process, as well as a priority boarding feature where they'll be able to settle into their high-end motor coach accommodations without having to navigate through a crowd of inebriates, ex-convicts, and the morbidly obese. And from all of us at Greyhound, happy travels.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Es ye, it's ye, Ifre octe ivle.
Ooye, NK, Alk, Inye.
I'm Melanie High. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the Reverend Captain Kickass, and that was
Speakless Mountaineer.
Yeah. I don't. It occurred to me after I just did the intro that the show is called Free Talk Live in Pig Latin that it would be insanely difficult to do any more of the show in Igpayatanle.
That would be profoundly difficult.
Yeah. So, for some reason, I was reminded of Pig Latin today. I think on one of my social medias or something, somebody used it. And I was like, oh, yeah, Pig Latin. I learned that once when I was, 10 or something. I don't remember.
All I can think of is police officers and Roman fasces.
Pig Latin, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Anyway, this is Free Talk Live. We are the live call-in radio talk program where you can call, talk about whatever is on your mind. In the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
We've been talking.
Having deja vu. I thought we covered that already.
And in the studio tonight, it's myself, the captain.
Who am I? What's going on?
This is Free Talk Live. The toll-free number doesn't exist anymore, so you have to call this non-toll-free number.
But you probably have a cell phone anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, do people even get charged? I guess international calls.
Landlines do, and you get charged for international, depending on your plan. Like, I can call Mexico and Canada, I think. I don't know, because I never have any reason to. But
right, because the North American numbering plan, that makes that seems like that's a natural that you might not get charged long distance for Canada and Mexico. But I could see international long, like calling overseas somehow or something like that. I could see that. But it's been so long since I had to even worry about that. I still remember the whole, like, all of the commercials during the long distance wars. You know, MCI had that, like, oh yeah, our new digital network, you can hear a pin drop. It's like, yeah, you know what else had to happen? They had to invent this thing. I've talked about this a couple of times here on Free Talk Live. When the digital technology took over telephones, instead of running everything over copper wire, when they started running it over fiber, which means digitizing all of your phone calls and sending it over fiber. Thank you. They had to invent something called the comfort tone. This is because digital technology is so good at what it does that it actually made people go, if you and I were on a call, Peakless, hello, are you there? Like, if there was a period of silence for some reason, because it would be dead silent. Right. And so they had to invent this thing called the comfort tone that plays now. Like, you experience it every time you make a phone call to somebody and there's a period of silence on your phone.
On cell phones?
On cell phone, on all phones. Anything that's digitized now, right? So landlines included, because landlines, while copper might be running to your house to run your landline, when it terminates, in your neighborhood to the big box that runs out to the network, they digitize it at that point and send it out over the digital network.
So that sort of gentle hum that you hear between talking to people?
It's just a little bit of white noise, just a little that you can barely hear unless you crank up your volume on your cell phone. Maybe you got to put the earphones in to hear it clearly, but there's just a little bit of white noise, a little bit of hiss going on in the background. And what that does is it has an effect on the human mind. The human mind subconsciously hears that because it's the same. All they did is they took a sample of the hiss that you would get from the copper lines, right? And then lowered the volume a little bit and digitally placed it in between the silences whenever there is one, so that you are tricked into thinking that the call is still connected, because people would think the call had disconnected because it was so perfect. So now all of the telcos have a comfort tone. That's my little bit of knowledge and telephony for you guys that I'm sharing with you here on Free Talk Live. We had no intention of talking about that tonight, but hey, sometimes we go on a tangent. We have been talking about the Federal Reserve is going to unleash, what did we say, July? A couple of perhaps prototypes or something of a digital dollar, digital currency that will be not just for the banks or even for the banks themselves, but will be like, you're going to have an account. And like, will you have to have an account with the Federal Reserve or what? What will you have to do? They haven't decided these things yet. Was there more to the article?
Just the last paragraph. Powell said last week, which would have been mid-March, we would not proceed with this without support from Congress. And I think that would ideally come in the form of an authorizing law rather than us trying to interpret our law to enable this. So what that means is, not executive, all the ABC branches, they're not constitutional. You have executive, judicial, and legislative. You don't have the alphabet branch of government in the Constitution.
Right.
So what he's asking for there is a law that just says, do what you want, Federal Reserve, not a law saying do X, Y, and Z, Federal Reserve.
Doesn't the Federal Reserve kind of do what they want anyway?
It's kind of superfluous because they're the ones who print the money.
Right.
Therefore, they're in charge.
Well, again, as far as I know, they were reincorporated into the federal government with the CARES Act. So where they were something of a private company, they are now, as far as I know, part of the Treasury.
I don't really care what Congress or the U.S. Code says they are.
Yeah.
They are, in fact, the central bank that owns the U.S., owns used really loosely, and really the entire planet because they're the reserve currency. So
Right. All the other...
they're the real government.
All the other central banks sort of bow to the U.S. Federal Reserve, as I understand it.
Well, they have to or they get exploded.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Quite literally.
Yeah.
And it is an old adage that an army marches on its stomach. So the entire, world's largest ever military force also answers to them.
Yeah, so get ready for negative interest rates and get ready for...
hyperinflation, man. I mean, that's...
Yes. Well,
mm-hmm.
Those aren't the exact same thing. So yeah, hyperinflation...
If you think you were poor before,
negative interest rates. So I mean, if the common folk, if they put, I don't know, they got a bonus one year at their job or whatever, and they got an extra $500 or something. If they put that in their savings account, negative interest rates apply. As soon as they see their deposit shrinking.
Yeah, it is
well, but
absolutely
if there's no cash, which is what they say digital dollar, but what they mean is no cash. If there's no cash, you can't just take it out.
Oh, right.
Which is why they have to go through this in order to institute negative interest rates.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'd institute them and people would be like, "That's cute. Give me my cash."
Yeah. The only
it's going to create it's going to be so much hell. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The only way at that point that you can hold on to your money at all is if you invest it in something like I'm sure they will love the stock market. Is the standard way of investing it to avoid inflation already.
Is Bitwage still a thing?
I don't know what that is.
Bitwage is a company that, how do I explain this? So if you work a regular job and your job says, here, fill out this form and give us a voided check so we can do your direct deposit, you do that, right? And then, of course, your money shows up in your bank account whenever payday rolls around. That's how it works, right? What Bitwage does is they take that process and instead of depositing your money into a bank account, they exchange it for cryptocurrency and deposit that into your crypto wallet. So what they do is they provide you the equivalent of a bank routing number and an account number, and that's tied to your Bitwage account. You just fill out your HR paperwork or payroll paperwork like you normally would, giving them that information instead of your regular checking account information or your savings account information. You give them that information, and instead of getting paid in dollars, as it were, you would get paid in cryptocurrency. And so if Bitwage is still a thing or any other companies like it, I haven't looked up Bitwage in a long time, but if there are other companies like it, then that is perhaps one way that you can retain your value when you do get paid by a traditional job.
And on a cursory search, it does appear to still be active.
Nice. 603-283-6160. Coming up, Biden committed to monthly stimulus checks for 4 more years. We'll talk about that here on Free Talk Live.
The Terran Federation and the Terran League have been killing each other for decades. Sheltered, wealthy, and light years from the threat, the members of the 500 have no interest in changing that. When Rear Admiral Terrence Murphy is given governorship of a backwater system, a risk-free path to wealth and power is his for the taking. But Murphy is a man of honor, duty, and responsibility. He intends to stop the killing, whatever the cost. Governor, by David Weber and Richard Fox, from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Yes, welcome back to Free Talk Live. We are a call-in radio program where you can take control of the airwaves and talk about whatever's on your mind. The telephone number here in the studio is 603-283-6160. Again, 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's me, the captain.
Bigless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And you can join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Now, ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, but ForkFest is different because it is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost to attend any of the events that are put on by the Forkfesters, unless, of course, they're charging individually for the events. You can't just pay one price. But you're free to wander around as much as you want with no ticket, and no one is in charge. All you need to do is reserve your camping site, your RV site, or your motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Now, I can't think of a better place to celebrate Independence Day than around a bunch of other freedom-loving people in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party, where you can connect with other attendees. You can find the unofficial Telegram chat link and also the unofficial forum. Links to those, again, at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine that he's been trying for years to get a speech for Porcupine Freedom Festival and finally managed to get one. And with ForkFest, you don't have to do any of that.
Yeah, you just need to probably borrow a microphone and a PA speaker from somebody.
Exactly.
And just tell everybody, hey, I'm doing a speech.
Yeah.
Advertise a little bit. We did have...
Which I think at forkfest.party, they have a list of some of the speakers and events there.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. There's a list of like the calendar of stuff. There's another, somebody else put together forkfest.com, which if you go there, once you have your campsite reserved, you can go there. And if you're putting on a thing, you can just highlight your campsite and enter the thing that you're doing. Be like, yep, campsite 23. This is where Bob's going to give a speech on Tuesday or whatever the name of your event is, that you can put it right there. So it's all sorts of fun stuff that, there's no organization putting any of these tools together. It's just the people who are attending and putting things on who are developing these things. Last year, our co-host Aria, she was able to find an app that she could customize for ForkFest while we were at ForkFest, so people could be like, what's coming up? Oh, look, there's a concert going on over here. Or, oh, look, somebody's having a card game over here, or that kind of a thing. And it was like an hour-by-hour thing. It was pretty cool. I don't know if that's going to exist again, but we shall see. That's what ForkFest is all about. People coming together, helping each other out, developing things, putting things on for other people, doing favors for other people. It's a great time.
It is.
All right, so we're moving on to the next article. This is from BGR.com. I don't know what that is, but the headline here reads, Biden just committed to monthly stimulus checks for 4 more years. Melanie, you brought this one in as well.
Yeah, so it says millions of Americans will get a monthly stimulus check for at least 4 years if President Biden's vision for his American Families Plan that he just presented during Wednesday night's joint session of Congress comes to pass.
Wow.
And these are not classified as stimulus checks, but I think I called it a couple months ago. They're trying to ease their on the air. I know I said it, but I think I said it on the air. Trying to kind of ease their way into UBI.
Yeah, that's also my summarization of what is going on. And this is really problematic, particularly when all of the entry-level jobs seem to be having a problem hiring people because of the predicament that people are in with either collecting unemployment that pays more or, living at home, collecting the stimmies, that kind of a thing. This is not going to remedy that situation in any way.
Oh, it's going to make it much, much worse.
So those checks would represent an even greater expansion of the already expanded federal child tax credit, which was made possible by last month's $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief legislation.
$1.9 trillion out of thin air.
The 1-year expansion of the tax credit under that bill provided up to $3,600 per eligible child in stimulus checks. So it was $3,600 if they're 5 or less, and $3,000 if they're over that.
Mm-hmm.
And it also made it fully refundable. So it used to be that part of it was, I don't have the chart in front of me, but part of it was it can go towards your tax liability, but you're not going to get that back if you have no tax liability or if you have very little tax liability.
Okay.
And then it was partially refundable. I want to say up to $2,000. But
So wait, does this only apply if you have kids?
Yes.
Oh, so people who don't have kids are just SOL?
Yeah. Yeah. So anybody who finds it that it behooves them to go out and have a kid before the end of the year, this is kind of this incentive structure that they're creating. If you find it, if you are so high time preference that you think that having a kid is worth $3,600
per month.
No,
per year.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's what it is right now. But then he's gonna expand the amounts, or trying to. Then you're gonna go ahead and do that. So you're incentivizing kind of the low end of people to go out and have a bunch of kids.
Yeah, I'm
more so than we were already doing.
I'm assuming the next part of the article will probably explain some of that just looking at it.
But I did want to clarify. So the child tax credit, that specifically, if you have if you don't owe them any money, you won't get that handed to you.
But there was a refundable portion even before now.
Refundable meaning if you have no tax liability, they will send you a check for that amount. Gotcha.
But not that whole amount. It was partial, and it was based on there was an income phase out. I would have to read you a chart, and I'm not going to do that on the air.
No, I just wanted the broad strokes here.
The 1-year expansion of the child tax credit bill that provided up to $3,600 per eligible child, and it's not officially called stimulus checks, but they're calling it stimulus checks in this article, spread out over monthly payments starting this July. So as of now, starting July, you start getting half, and it doesn't say that here, but it is the case. You're going to get half of that over those 6 months, and then the rest in, quote, April 15th, whenever you file and get your stuff back.
Okay.
So they'll give you $300 a month for having a kid.
Yeah, or I think it's $250 if they're an older kid. Whatever that math is. As we noted earlier on Wednesday, a group of House Democrats has called on President Biden to support making these payments permanent, meaning millions of parents would get a stimulus check of at least a few $100s, essentially forever. I mean, until your kid turns 18.
That is really scary to me, and we could talk more about this coming up on Free Talk Live.
Karl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Karl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Karl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 28th through July 4th for ForkFest 2021 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 28th through July 4th. Where better to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire? You can relax and enjoy the camaraderie of like-minded people, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with fellow ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Mark your calendar for June 28th through July 4th, 2021. We'll see you at forkfest.party.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Yes, come on and listen to Free Talk Live. Yeah, the telephone number is 603-283-6160. We'll get to your calls and thoughts in just a moment. In the studio tonight, it is myself, the Reverend Captain Kickass, joining me.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
On March 16th, 2021, terrorists, calling themselves, well, different government agency names, conspired together and raided the Free Talk Live studio, the Bitcoin Embassy, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Renee and Andy Spinella, and Colleen Fordham, and they arrested 6 people. These people are called the Crypto Six. They were all taken into custody. 4 of them have been released on some form of bail, but Ian Freeman, one of the 2 founders of this very radio program, and one of our co-hosts, who goes by the name Nobody, both remain hostages. That is to say, they are behind bars. What can you do to help? You can go visit thecrypto6.com. There you'll find multiple ways that you can donate to their legal defense fund, as well as a bunch of information on the Crypto 6 themselves, because these charges aren't a joke. It's going to take some serious legal teams and experts to protect the Crypto 6 from further aggression from the state. This case is likely to set precedent that will affect the world of cryptocurrency for decades to come. You can help in their fight for liberty and financial freedom by visiting thecrypto6.com. Again, thecrypto6.com. We've been talking about this article that Melanie brought in from BGR.com, where Biden, the headline reads, Biden just committed to monthly stimulus checks for 4 more years. This seems tied to the
it's the UBI rollout is what it is.
Right, but it's tied to the $3,600 child tax credit in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so they're going to give you a child already for this year. They're going to give you a slightly expanded child tax credit, assuming you have a child that you claim, and pay you half of it monthly up front, which can cause problems if you have a child that you claimed last year and not this next year. Because you don't just get to keep it like you did the stimulus.
Can I claim all of the government as my dependents?
No.
Why not?
Because they're not your son, daughter, nephew, niece, brother, sister. There's a list of relationships.
They also don't live in the same house with you.
Yes.
Well, what about foster care?
What about it?
They could be my foster children.
They could if they lived with you.
They're dependent on me, though, as well as everybody else.
But they don't live with you, and they're not one of those relationship things.
I mean, we all live in this one country, right? So technically, they do live with
same
me.
Address, so.
Everybody lives with me, and all around the globe, everybody lives together.
Well, since they're the dependents of you and 300 and some odd million other people, you are going to have to check with your spouses. All 336 million of them.
Isn't there only 20,000 government workers or something like that? Can I claim all of them?
Well, you're going to have to check with all of them to make sure that they're not claiming the government is their dependents.
I see. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Melanie.
Okay, so
Wait, actually, don't. Let's go to the phones first. We've got somebody calling himself Yo-Yo from New Mexico calling.
That was Yo-Yo Smuggler, you yo-yo.
Yo-Yo Smuggler, also known as David, right?
Why would one smuggle yo-yos?
if they were illegal,
What?
Why would one smuggle yo-yos
or if
is
there were
what I was
tariffs
asking.
on them or taxes on them.
Man, all your hip listeners are laughing at you right now because you don't know what a yo-yo smuggler is.
Okay.
Google it. Google it while we're talking.
No, thanks. What did you want to talk about today, David?
Well, besides yo-yo smugglers, I wanted to place an order. Since you have a direct line to the FBI, I wanted to place an order. The FBI.
Well, they can hear you now. So
Yeah, they can hear you, so go ahead. Place your order.
Yeah. That's why I'm calling, man, because they're right here at the table. So FBI, you have the DOJ is going to go to Minneapolis and investigate the Minneapolis Police Department. Like they're here in Albuquerque and they're in Louisville or Cincinnati and like a half a dozen other markets, Seattle, because of civil rights violations, a pattern and practice. That's a legal term. And they have determined that there is a pattern and practice of violation of civil rights law, or there may be, by the Minneapolis Police Department. So they're going to open a DOJ investigation into that. So I wanted FBI and DOJ, Merrick Garland, I wanted to place an order, please. I'll have one civil rights investigation, pattern and practice of civil rights violations in the state of New Mexico, based on sanctions, legal orders, court orders written based on a pattern and practice of arbitrary and capricious decisions in the family and children's courts, like by Judge John J. Romero.
Mm-hmm.
And as evidence, FBI, DOJ, Merrick Garland, I would like to supply the recent under oath admission in deposition of a Ms. Collins who works for the Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, works for her in the area of the COVID lockdowns. And Ms. Collins admitted under oath in the deposition in a court lawsuit where there are some trampoline businesses suing the state of New Mexico and the governor for the arbitrary and capricious nature of the lockdown of their business and the damages they have succumbed to.
All right, David, I've got a couple of questions for you, though. Do you want that regular or supersized?
No, man, I want supersize. I want the works on that, the heavy everything, extra everything, yum.
Do you want cheese?
That's what I want.
Do you want cheese?
Huh?
Cheese?
Oh, there's all kinds of cheese in the government, man.
Bacon?
There's all kinds of... I want their bacon. Yeah, I want their bacon.
Okay, so cheese and bacon. And is that all? Does that complete your order?
No, I'll never be satisfied, man. I'll never be satisfied, no.
I'd prefer to have less bacon when it comes to my government orders.
Yeah, less pork, definitely, when it comes to the government.
I will say, stuff like this sometimes does work, because a couple of years ago, Sally Mae has more aliases than anybody with a rap sheet. And they keep sending the loans to, okay, we're changing where you need to send it, and they just keep changing where you needed to pay, and they finally did get a website where you could pay, but I had lost because they wanted to do it by the mail instead of, anything from this century.
Mm-hmm.
And I had lost the slip to pay them. And I posted on Facebook. I was like, look, Sally Mae, I'm trying to pay you. You don't have a website where I can pay you, because that account didn't at the time. And I'm willing to pay you. I don't know your contact information because it's different than the other account I have. And they won't talk to me about this account, even though it's both you.
Right.
So call me and I will pay you. And the next day, I got a call from Sally Mae.
No way.
And I'm like, okay, what's your mailing address? Okay, I'll get the check out.
So I'm sorry, David, just to our listeners out there, if you didn't get the gist of that is Melanie put a post up asking arguably a government organization to call her because she's trying to pay them. And that message made it to that organization somehow, some way. and they called her the next day.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've been telling Ian, and Ian's listening right now too, so we can just talk to him. That's what I've been telling you, Ian, for years, is that I talk about it on the radio, and then mysteriously, shortly after I talk about it on the radio, things seem to move where there had been no movement for a long, long, long time.
Well, it just goes to show the government does listen. They just don't care.
Thanks for the call, David.
You know, if you're trying to pay them, apparently.
Well, they're interested in that.
Yeah,
They didn't make it easy.
Making it easy is not something
You can't just
they're
have like a
interested in.
payment address on your website or something. That's crazy.
No.
Oh, man. 603-283-6160. Is Big Brother watching you as closely as they appear to be watching Melanie?
yeah.
No, I'm the listeners.
Less so, probably, for most of them.
Let us know. 603-283-6160. More Free Talk Live is coming up.
From that romantic summer evening in 1924 when Pol Pot was conceived, to the first time someone figured out how to eat a pineapple without ripping their mouth to shreds. This week in history, 1692, 5 citizens were executed after being convicted during the Salem witch trials, all while dozens of witches, warlocks, and sorcerers stood by and watched the wrongly accused take the rap for them, while the perfectly normal humans charged with witchcraft were publicly hung and dragged to their unmarked graves. The numerous Salem citizens that did spend their evenings casting spells and awakening the dead merely lowered their heads as their friends and neighbors were burned at the stake.
Historical records have indicated that as many as 35% of the people in Salem were actually witches and warlocks. In fact, the executioner himself was a well-known necromancer who, after hanging the wrongly accused witches, reanimated their dead bodies and apologized before casting them into the eternal fires of hell.
This is the Onion News Network.
Bitcoin.com has launched a trading platform at local.bitcoin.com, allowing you to buy or sell Bitcoin Cash via dozens of payment methods like PayPal, Venmo, bank deposit, remittances, or meeting in person with cash. There are no ID requirements to sign up for and use the site, and all communications between buyers and sellers are encrypted. Finally, a global trading platform that respects your privacy. Visit local.bitcoin.com to get started trading Bitcoin Cash. local.bitcoin.com. So you've heard all 3 hours of the latest episode of Free Talk Live, and you're still hungry for liberty-oriented audio content? Did you know that we have another 24/7 audio stream at LRN.FM? The Liberty Radio Network airs the latest episodes of some of the best liberty-oriented podcasts on the internet around the clock. In addition to recorded content, you'll also hear live shows like Free Talk Live, originating from our Keene, New Hampshire studio. So listen anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
The Shire Free Church offers a sanctuary to those seeking an escape from state churches.
The Shire Free Church is an interfaith, diverse group of people that may not share identical theological beliefs. As a member in or minister of the Shire Free Church, you are a sovereign individual and may be the faith of your choice.
We don't claim to have all of the answers.
We are open to all peaceful people.
We want to learn from each other.
What unifies the Shire Free Church and its diverse members is peace,
love, and liberty. There are many paths to God, one for every individual.
The Shire Free Church does not define a specific path beyond those parameters that must be your foundation.
Peace as your way,
love as your guide,
and liberty as your light.
Learn more at church.shiresociety.com.
That's church.shiresociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Yes, it is Free Talk Live. It's the final segment of this Sunday night edition. Thanks for tuning in and thanks for listening, everybody. We're here 7 days a week from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. Eastern Time, live doing this show with a couple of exceptions every year. But outside of that, 7 days a week, live program you can call. We've got a caller on hold. We'll get to him in just a minute. But first, I am your host this evening. I am the Reverend Captain Kickass. Joining me,
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Melanie.
And we want to say thank you to a gentleman named Jake Leonard, who is a gold amplifier. That means he gives, I believe, $10 a month to the AMP program. What is the AMP program? Well, AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. And you can find out a whole bunch more about the program over at amp.freetalklive.com. You get some perks for when you join and you make your contribution. There's some little things that you get. But really, the reason to contribute and join and become an amplifier is because you enjoy this radio program. You find that there's value in it, and you like that we talk about things from the perspective of freedom and peace and prosperity. And you would like to see us get on more radio stations than we're currently on. Right now, we're on around 200. We could be on 250. We could be on 300 radio stations. It's all up to you. This money goes directly to getting us on more radio stations. It doesn't go into Lee's gas tank or a Peakless Mountaineer's gas tank. It doesn't go into Melanie's, fund for, her nerd activities. It doesn't go into my beer budget. It goes directly to help getting this show on more radio stations. So visit amp.freetalklive.com, and thank you again, Jake Leonard, for your contribution. We appreciate you. Let's go right to the phones. We've got Robert calling from Michigan. Robert, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Good morning, guys. Thanks for taking my call. As always, an interesting show.
Well, good morning to you, too.
I assume you're in Australia?
No, he's in Michigan.
No, I do that for two reasons. One, to make sure people are paying attention, and because the sun's always shining somewhere. It's always coming up somewhere. So
it's funny
you stay positive.
It's funny you say that, Robert, because I will do that like at a grocery store or a gas station when it's, like now. It'll be obviously night, and I'll walk up to the cashier and be like, good morning. And they go, good morning. I'm like, yeah, just seeing if you're paying attention. So anyway.
Always look on the bright side of life.
Anyway, Robert called, I assume, for a reason.
I did.
What is
I catch your show whenever I can, and I came into the end of the conversation pretty much. You were talking about how the feds were going to roll out some sort of a program in July regarding electronic currency, correct? Where was that article again so I can look at it? That was bitcoin.com at their website, if I caught it correctly.
Are you on any of our Free Talk Live social media, Twitter, Facebook, anything like that?
Guys, I am a dinosaur. I can barely reach the computer and the phone.
Okay.
I don't do social media.
It is BGR, which I believe is Boy Genius Review or something like that. Or Boy Genius Report, one of those.
I've also got, it's at news.bitcoin.com. And it's the Fed. The Fed plans to unveil digital dollar.
Oh, sorry. The one we're talking about now is on BGR. Sorry.
Right. So the previous article, news.bitcoin.com.
News.bitcoin.com. Okay. Then I've got two questions. One, what do you think and I'm a little bit old school, so don't laugh.
Mhm.
What do you think the chances of gold and silver are regarding going digital? And do you think that we as a country are going to survive the next 8 years as we know it without some sort of catastrophic economic collapse?
All right, we'll each take a moment to answer that. Your first question was,
Do you think gold and silver is going to survive?
I believe
or is worth?
No, I believe somebody there's cryptocurrency people who do these things called stable coins, and I believe there's already cryptocurrency that's tied to gold and silver. So yes, those are, and also I'm a firm believer in holding hard assets like gold and silver as well. So if you have those, hold on to those. And then as far as the 8 years, are we going to be able to survive? I mean, yes, we're going to be able to survive. We're a society. Is there going to be major changes? Likely. Peakless?
So I think I heard something or other about China even investing in creating a gold-backed cryptocurrency. Weirdly enough. So the problem with backing a cryptocurrency with gold or silver is holding on to the gold or the silver, because the United States government really thinks that they have a right to all the gold on Earth. So now the last time they did something like that, the United States government decided to raid the people involved and steal all of their gold, because they do that. So maybe.
So what if you're buying gold and silver with cash and there's no record of you holding on to gold and silver? Is it going to do any good to keep it or to then sell it? I mean, would it be even legal to sell it?
Well, the best part of it is that it never hits zero. Like, it is always valuable to somebody, and over time,
central bank currencies have, for the record.
Yeah, and over time, if you actually look into it, the price of like a good meal, a good suit, a house, things like that, tend to remain roughly stable with the amount of gold that one pays for those things. So, probably. The downside is that you're not able to interact on any international level whatsoever. Now, as far as the other question, I don't know when. It might be today. It might be 10 years from now. But no, the collapse is imminent. Now, it's not going to be, I think, as drastic or terrifying as people expect, because we have a replacement technology in cryptocurrency.
Yeah, so if you don't, it's kind of like with crypto. If you don't have the seed, then you don't have the crypto. If you don't have the gold or silver, you don't have gold or silver. You've been able to buy, quote, gold and silver on traditional exchanges for a long time now, and I haven't read about the crypto-backed gold and silver myself. I would be something in between cautious and against. I would not do that. I would advise everyone to not do that. If you want to buy gold and silver, buy gold and silver.
Buy the physical gold and silver, right?
If you can't hold it in your hand, it's not gold and silver. I see no benefit to putting that on any kind of electronic exchange.
Right.
Or no benefit to the owner anyway. And I guess it depends on what you mean by we the country. I mean, will society survive? Probably. Will the country fail? I mean, that depends on whether or not the Federal Reserve wants it to. Yes, there's going to be some serious economic problems. Biden's not going to live for the next 8 years because he's already like 80. So.
And it is also worth mentioning that one of the possibilities with a global economic collapse is actually that war as we know it will end, because if fiat stops, if government printed currencies stop being the go-to to trade, then we have to deal with things like gold, silver, and most of the cryptocurrencies that are limited.
But just because the Federal Reserve loses world reserve status doesn't mean that all fiat currencies are going to lose their status of having that power over their own country. And that it also doesn't mean that no other fiat currency is going to be the world reserve status. So saying that because the central bank fails, therefore we're all going to live in this utopia of crypto and metal,
Well,
I don't think that's justified.
It's exceptionally difficult to compete with a good product when you have a terrible product. And Fiat is a terrible product.
Well, but it's not a product because there's no market for it.
Your thoughts, Robert?
You know, you've given me a lot more to think about. And one of my problems is I'm a little bit overinformed, and it's just tough to try to make what I would think would be the right decision to protect what I've lived a lifetime to earn, without the government knocking down the door and taking what they want to take.
Invest in lots of different things.
Yeah,
Never put all your eggs in one basket.
I was going to say something similar. Diversify as much as you can. Have a little bit of gold, have a little bit of silver, put some into cryptocurrency. I mean, I know people who are like,
stocks are probably going to go up, blue chip ones especially.
Right.
Stocks depends on how old you are.
Is good old-fashioned cash worth hanging on to outside of a bank?
Some.
For immediate needs, that is an investment.
Yep. Thanks for the call tonight, Robert. We appreciate it. Well, we are out of time here on Free Talk Live. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. If you missed any of the show, you can find our archives at freetalklive.com. Thanks and peace.
A newly recruited search and rescue officer, Marshall Hunter was resigned to a life of rescuing wayward spacefarers and derelict satellites. But when a billionaire couple goes missing, his own ship is disabled during the rescue. With communication satellites suddenly failing and lunar mineral shipments disappearing in transit, the crew suspects it's more than a coincidence, and Hunter must choose between salvation and sacrifice to save his crewmates and their civilian charges. Frontier by Patrick Childs and BingBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.